Welcome to this course study by Grant et al. The title of this study is Context-Dependent Memory for Meaningful Material Information for Students. I'll explain why information for students in a bit, but key theme running through the cognitive area is memory. It's paired with Loftus and Palmer because that's also about memory. It's about eyewitness memory, eyewitness testimony. Okay. If you've got a handout accompanying this, then pause and complete the associated tasks, and also complete a summary. Very important. This study is all about students' memory, and it's very important for your revision that you create either cue cards or an audio recording. So doing something like I'm doing now, explaining it to yourself, even if you're never going to play it to anybody, by articulating it makes you really understand it. Okay, so I recommend doing that. When we see the pause sign, then pause and have a go at doing that. Update your summaries. So the background, this is someone revising for an exam. That's going to be important. Context-dependent memory. So what is context-dependent memory? It refers to improved recall of specific episodes or information when the context present at encoding and retrieval are the same. Okay. By encoding, what we mean is when we encode memory. When you are listening to me now, you are encoding what I am saying. If you speak English, you are encoding the English words I'm speaking, and hopefully some of them are going to go into your memory. The argument with context-dependent memory is that you would be able to recall more if you were sat in the exam with the headphones in that you're wearing now, if you're wearing headphones. Whether or not I was talking to you through the headphones wouldn't matter. I obviously wouldn't be able to in the exam, but theoretically you'd be able to recall more because at the moment you've got headphones in, and so later if you've got headphones in. This study explains it better, which I'll get down to in a sec. First of all, researchers believe the effect occurs because the characteristics of the environment are encoded as part of the memory trace. When you have traces of memories, okay, memory trace is left there in your brain. Oh, I'm sure I've seen you before. I recognise that person over there. All those kind of statements. You're accessing memory traces. Okay, and the idea is that when you meet these people, for example, when you meet someone for the first time, you're remembering their face, but you're also remembering parts of the environment that you're in. So you're remembering the bar that you're in when you're meeting this person, as well as the person. So if you are in that bar, again, you're more likely to recall more information, okay, about that person that you're trying to remember. So, yeah, this study by Badley and Godden, or Godden and Badley, 1975 and 1980, essentially what they did was they got participants to learn and recall either on land, on the beach, or underwater. And you found good recall if you learnt and recalled on the beach, and also good recall if you learnt it underwater and recalled it underwater. So if you were tested underwater and you'd learnt it underwater, then you did well on the test. If you learnt it on the beach and recalled it on the beach, you did well on the test. But if you learnt it on the beach and then tried recalling it underwater, you didn't do as well. And the same the other way around. Learn it underwater, recall it on the beach, the participants didn't do as well. So it seems like not only are you learning what's in the test, but you're also learning bits of the environment that's going to help you recall it. So you can see where this study is going. Yeah, when we talk about information for students, then this study is supposed to advise students on the best ways in which to revise. Research has shown that context dependency may play an important role in numerous situations such as memory for studied material. So context-dependent memory are memories that you can only recall when you are in the same context, like those divers being on the same beach or underwater. So memory for studied material means material you've studied, your revision. So Grant et al. wanted to determine whether environmental context dependency effects would be found with the type of material and type of tests typically encountered at schools. Okay, so they want to use academic information. They wanted to use the kind of stuff that you have to learn for exams. So really, they're trying to increase the ecological validity of this study for students. So make it relevant to students. They focus more on study conditions than on differences in classroom testing because they argued, so study conditions being what conditions do you study in at home, for example. They wanted to focus more on that because you have more control over what you can do in terms of whether you revise in a silent bedroom, whether you revise in a library, whether you revise with your music on, whether you revise with people running around the house. So they wanted to concentrate on what about this studying conditions. Forget about whether it's a classroom environment or not. Okay. So the aims, they argued that in observations of students, they weren't actual observations. They were saying that from their observations of seeing their students over the years, they argued that often they study with background noise from either family, friends or television, while test environments are much quieter, usually tested in silence, especially in exams. So, they're saying from their anecdotal observations, is that going to impact us? The fact that we're learning in noisy environments and trying to recall in quieter ones. So if context dependency occurs with meaningful course material, so actual academic information that you've got to learn, student study habits could be harming their test, exam or performance. So they're saying if you are revising in a noisy environment with background noise and then you're recalling in a silent exam hall, then are you impacting your exam performance? They therefore aim to show that environmental context can have a more positive effect on memory test when the test takes place in the same environment in which the to be remembered material was originally studied. So when you've got a matching condition, then when the test occurs in a different environment, a mismatching condition. So in other words, are their participants going to do better when they are recalling in silence and they have learnt the material in silence compared to if they're listening to background noise when they're learning the material and then recalling it with background noise or silence? So research method, it's an independent measures design which could be important later. Think about individual differences in memory perhaps. But lab experiment, the IV, very straightforward this. Whether the participants read a 2-page article under a silent or noisy condition. Okay, nice straightforward IV that you can replicate this study yourself quite easily. Whether participants were tested under matching or mismatching conditions. Okay, so when they're actually being tested on this 2-page article, were they under the same condition or were they under a different condition to when they learnt it? The first IV, the context, silent versus noisy, and the second IV, the test condition, silent versus noisy, were manipulated in a between subjects factorial design, producing 4 conditions. Okay, so that means independent measures produced 4 conditions, and I'll show you a visual summary of that in a sec. The dependent variable was the participant's performance on a short answer recall test and a multi-choice recall test. Okay, so just 1 or 2 word answers for the recall test and a multi-choice test as well. So here are the conditions, and you can pause and note these down. You've got 8 participants in each. You've got silent learning, so this is the part of the study where they're learning a 2-page article, and this is where they're being tested on it. Okay, so you're either silent when you're reading it and then silent when you're testing, or you've got background noise when and this was done with headphones, background noise when you're learning, to noisy, so they're the same context, they're matching context, or these are mismatching context conditions here, silent to noisy and noisy to silent. Okay, so different participants for each one. Okay, note that visual summary down, and we shall move on to part 2.